lawyers had done in the 1920s, in striped trousers, morning coat, and a necktie that begged to be called a cravat. Among evangelicals, he was the northern Magus. In the early 20th century, he had taken over the Swedish Baptist franchise in the States of the Old Northwest, and had done so in a campaign worthy of Clausewitz. From there he moved on to bigger fights and bigger audiences. In his long career he had been the chief figure in the World Christian Fundamentals Association, and, among other anti-modernist activities, was solidly behind the Scopes trial. He was not, by any stretch of the imagination, a nice man, but his frock-coated preaching and lawyerly dialectics framed the characteristic style of northern evangelical dogmatics. No one could deny that his talons were long and his will strong. William Bell Riley. He retired as senior pastor of our church in mid-1946, and my uncle, Curtis B. Akenson, took over our church. However, Riley, always Dr. Riley to his followers, whether he was a serving pastor, was retired, or actually was no longer alive, remained the president of Northwestern College and Bible Schools, a set of institutions he had founded, and that, in influence, exceeded in upper Midwestern evangelical circles that of the famous Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. Dr. Riley looked for a successor, someone whose doctrinal beliefs were congruent with his own, but whose relative youth and vigor would energetically pass the faith to a new generation of soul winners. In mid-1947, the old man, in ill health, summoned a young Baptist preacher from the Mid-South and set himself in the role of the old prophet, Elijah. He was passing his mantle to young Elisha, 1 Kings, chapter 19, verse 19. The young clergyman overcame his deep reservations and became vice president of Northwestern College. He promised to take over as president for a time if Dr. Riley died, which inevitable transition was effected in December 1947, leaving William Franklin Graham, always Billy at the time, a long way from the ceremonial Dr. Graham, as the youngest college president in America, albeit of an unaccredited institution. Accreditation of the college was a side issue, for Graham was already established as a traveling evangelist. He was not around much and gave up the presidency in 1952. For administrative convenience, he moved the headquarters for his evangelical crusades to Minneapolis in early 1948, and most of the upper-level staff worshipped at First Baptist. That had not been a formal part of the deal with the late Dr. Riley, but these were people of good sense and of good manners, and they knew that, whether or not obligations were put on paper, certain debts had to be paid. As children, we loved having the new people around. They were friendly and generous and so very different. There was a great joy in watching the oiled-hair Southern gents in too light suits. Did any real Minnesotan of that era ever wear a white linen suit? Their big-haired wives and their Orlon-sweatered daughters. They got on well with our parents. In the adult pre-church Bible study classes, they mixed easily with third- and fourth-generation Swedes who had been dutifully and industriously searching the Scriptures for years and years, hoping that the rapture would occur quickly, or at least before next winter. Because of his crusading schedule, Billy Graham graced our pulpit rarely. The few times I was taken to a service to hear him give a brief message, the result was the same. Because we sat close to the raised rostrum, he loomed over us, an animated angel, and I got a terrible crick in the neck. That is not a bad thing, really. Looking up to a great man should do that. In their successive lives, William Bell Riley and Billy Graham delineated the spine of conservative evangelical